O Lord, open my lips that my mouth might show forth your praise. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. This week I was thinking about summer homes. And it occurred to me that there's a holiness to summer homes, particularly if you've summered there a long time. These homes are full of the spirits and the presence of people and the past events of your life. They're places where the stream of life is eternal. And by that I mean there's no separable and distinct past, present, or future. Your child may be swimming up in the headwaters, and your parent may be down by the mouth, and you're somewhere in the middle, but you can see how it's all happening at once. And each summer, you make these connections, and you remember the meaning, and it's palpable for you. When you sit there and you have memories of yourself as a child, and you remember the stories of your parents and your grandparents as children, and the time when you brought your own children there. Or for some of you, when your grown children come with you there, and then later they bring their children there. And you have this vision of the generations to come, and coming to know what you know, and coming to love what you love. There's real holiness in that sort of eternity. Sitting there, watching, and listening to the waves roll in, or the loons sing their song, or the wind in the trees. World without end. And I think some of that holiness is due to the Sabbath nature of the place. The place is a time away, a time out, a time just for life and just for being. That you go to be a human being rather than a human doing. Because there's a fullness in that as time slows down where there's nothing to do. You'll know you're there when your kids start saying, there's nothing to do here. And you'll say, that's why we're here, to do nothing. Doing nothing is what you're doing. It's about recreation, which we shorten to call recreation, but not production. Even when you're trimming the roses or painting the porch, it's about recreation and not production. And as I was thinking about it this summer, part of the holiness comes from the sameness, the unchanging nature of the place, the fulfillment of your expectations as you go there based upon your memories. When you open up the cupboards and there are the same chipped and mismatched pots and pans and coffee cups and plates that have accumulated over the years and don't go together, and the cutlery that looks something like a church kitchen, and the oilcloth tablecloth. There's a smell of a summer house, a mustiness that's temporarily banished by windows and screen porches being opened and the summer sun baking. And the sameness of your beach or your cove or your pond or your stream or your meadow or your view. And the same walks that you like to go on year after year, and the same stars that you look at, the summer constellations. and the sun rises, and the sun sets, and the same swims, and the same routines. And people tell me that they feel especially close to God in these places and these times. They feel blessed. They feel filled with holiness. And by holiness, I mean a difference from normal. That quality of life that is unequivocally good and blessed and beneficial and just makes you happy. As in wanting to chuckle for no reason, or whistle for no reason, or get down and play in the sand, or stop at a beach and skip a rock. Happy. And that's why we go to these places. Because that's how you define holy, as in not normal. And so we go to these places because they're familiar, they lack surprises and the challenges and disturbances that our Labor Day to Memorial Day homes face us with. Places like perhaps your home here, the home we choose to make our way in life from, and which I love to joke with people. People loved, when I first came to Dover, everyone said, Dover is the greatest place in the world. That was in August. By the following May, everyone's like, I can't wait to get out of here and go away for the summer. I'm like, really? Of course, I spend much of my summer here. I'm like, well, it's really great when you all leave. And I call this a spirituality of comfortable familiarity. But then, there are the lessons that we had this morning of Moses and Jacob and Jesus. Talk about surprises. Just to give you some background on Moses in case you've forgotten. Moses, given up by his mother, raised by an Egyptian princess, discovers that he's actually a Hebrew, kills an overseer, has to flee, goes out into the wilderness, marries this foreign gal, and there we meet him, tending his father-in-law's sheep. He's come down a long way in life. It's pretty clear from the text that Moses didn't even know about God. Having been raised by Egyptians, they wouldn't have taught him. And he certainly wasn't expecting to meet God face to face, let alone become the leader of God's people. He's out there, he's walking around in the wilderness of Sinai, and he goes to this mountain. He's shepherding his father-in-law's sheep, which means he's not at home with his family, he's out there. He's far from the beauty and luxury of Pharaoh's palaces where he was raised. In other words, hardly at a summer home. And then there's Jacob. Jacob, you'll remember, is a funny guy to be in the Bible because his life's a disaster. He gets in repeated problems throughout. And where we meet him here, he's in Beersheba on his way to Haran because he's running away from family problems. He's double-crossed his brother, stolen his brother's inheritance, and now he's running because he's afraid his brother's going to kill him. And even more than that, he's got mixed up with two sisters and has a double-dealing father-in-law who gave him one sister when he thought he was going to marry the other sister, and now he has two sisters that he's married to. Now, Jacob knew God growing up in his home, but it's clear from the stories about Jacob that he did not imagine God with him in his messed up circumstances. And it's important that you also know about Jacob, that Jacob goes on to be has his name changed to Israel, which means the one who wrestles with God. And that's the story of Jacob's life. As he goes from one situation to the next, he wrestles with where is God in this situation. And then we fast forward to Jesus, who is the surprise. In all the stories about Jesus, the thing that goes unspoken is how people are surprised by this person. And when you think about the 5,000, they weren't surprised. They saw the boat leave and they ran along the shoreline to get ahead of him. So when they were fed with the loaves, they weren't surprised. They went there in the wilderness ahead of him because they were expecting to see something. Some sort of kingdom of God experience, some sort of eternal event. In a way, they prepared themselves to see God because they went. It's sort of that feeling for those of you who summer on the Cape. I remember as a boy when you would see the Sagamore Bridge, and all of a sudden you're like, summer is just over there. Or for those of you who go to Maine, the Piscataqua Bridge. Or when you drive into your lake house and you turn off the road onto the dirt road and you're going in, and it's like, I'm about to see it. You ready for the holiness? In those stories of Moses and Jacob, while they were certainly surprised to find themselves on holy ground, both did prepare themselves. Moses saw the burning bush, and he didn't just drive on by or take a picture and put it on Facebook. He turned aside and looked long enough to figure out, why is that bush not burning up? And it was because he stopped that God said, Moses, Moses. Or Jacob is moving through this land and he stops and he takes a stone from the place to mark it and lays his head down on it to spend the night. The point I'm getting at is now that summer is coming to an end, and most of us are about to be more like Moses and Jacob, living very complicated, very rushed lives that are full, rather than our summer home lives. We have to ask ourselves, are we ready to go another 9 months without knowing God's presence? Without knowing the holiness in our lives? Are we ready to go to Memorial Day again without seeking God's presence? Are we looking to be surprised? You see, I am convinced it's as simple as that. I've said before that when you change the way you look at something, the thing you look at changes. And those of us who spend a lot of time here in Dover in the summer know that Dover is a holy place in the summer. It's very quiet, very restful. You can sit outside and see the stars and listen to the birds. And then all of a sudden, on Tuesday morning, it's like a switch is going to be flipped. And it's going to become hysterical. And so I ask you to think about how on Tuesday morning you can set up a practice of flipping the switch back off, just from time to time. And you'll find that you're on holy ground. And you didn't even know it. Amen.